my view would be that, that there's real merit in paying attention to forecasting the price of oil. It's not just groping in the dark. I can think of some very important large-scale decisions that turn on having excellent models of oil prices. I'll give you two. If you're going to build a pipeline, for instance, the Keystone Pipeline that's connecting the tar sands deposits in Alberta into the mainland of the U.S., that's a very expensive venture. It's costing into the billions of dollars. You wouldn't undertake that sort of venture unless you had a good idea of the kinds of profits that might be available having built the pipeline. In natural gas markets, similar sorts of issues apply. Right now, spot prices for natural gas in the United States and in Europe are widely separated. Spot prices in the United States and Japan are even farther apart. There are in-place terminals that were built a while ago to accept imported natural gas into the United States. There's discussion of converting those to export terminals. Again, that's a very expensive venture. One wouldn't want to undertake that sort of venture unless one had an accurate model of spot prices of natural gas going forward. What kinds of things would we worry about? Well, there's sort of two approaches that one might imagine taking. You might think of these, roughly speaking, as building a detailed model of the way that the oil market works, thinking about all the ingredients, coming up with little modules to describe each part. Or you might just think about modeling on kind of a broad base, seeing the way that price patterns evolve. I've got papers that do both. There are merits for each. I think in terms of the kinds of things that one would need to pay attention to, if you're going to do a complete structural model, there are a lot of sectors that have to be considered in great detail. And my guess would be the extra bang for the buck, as we say, is small. That one can probably do a reasonably good job of predicting the price path of oil based on an evaluation of historic past prices. Yeah, yes and yes. Every one of those ingredients is important. They all describe key players or key elements that fit into international energy markets, particularly oil markets, and indeed they all do play a role. What's missing? There's no discussion in there of the nature of decisions made by OPEC. OPEC has 80% of conventional oil reserves, and actions that they take have the potential to greatly influence the price of oil. There's no discussion of infrastructure limitations. I spoke a moment ago about the need to build new pipelines to deliver crude oil from Canada to the United States, for instance. The same thing is true in Europe in delivering oil and gas supplies from Russia into Western Europe, or from the Middle East basin into, say, Italy or Greece. So new large-scale deposits that have been found in the United States do matter, but they matter only insofar as they can be delivered to market. So these infrastructure constraints, I think, also are worth some consideration. The other thing that's not been mentioned in this discussion, which I think is likely to be particularly important in, I'll say, not in the next year, but maybe in the next 5 or 10 years, is the potential for some sort of meaningful climate policy. Were such, for instance, you could imagine some kind of carbon tax put in place. That'll have immediate effects upon the price of oil. It will have immediate effects on coal, so that means that it will matter for fuels that can substitute for coal, like natural gas. And I think that has real potential for influencing the trends in energy markets going forward. As I say, not in the next year. I think it's unlikely that there'll be any kind of meaningful carbon policy put in place in the next little while, but perhaps within 5 years.